In this video, I'm going to share with you a tactic that turned my team from being a passive team that didn't really press the opposition to become a team that was aggressive and dominant in FM26. So everything I'm going to share with you in this video is going to actually help you make your tactic a bit more aggressive with Football Manager and going to reduce all those passive movement where you're going to notice that your fullbacks or even your central midfielders are not closing down your position enough. There's some of tiny tweaks that you're going to go ahead and do with your tactics to help it be a bit more aggressive. So of course in FM26, to get to the tactics screen, you have to go back to match day and of course head over to tactics under match day. And this is going to take you to the system that I'm currently using with Newcastle. Now it's not this 4-2-3-1 Magpies. This was the previous version that to some extent I actually want to tweak it as well. But the system I actually want to show you is my second variant of the system, which is similar to the 4-2-3-1 Magpies, but this is the one that actually helped us get over the line. So I used this and got my team to be a bit more aggressive than they normally should be. I noticed in FM26 the players are very passive, so let's just get into the player rules first of all, then we'll look at the team instructions on how the team is set up. Player rules are quite important in this game, but you notice that in most of the player rules that I've selected here, I've not really gone on for any of the new rules yet. I'm still thinking about how to adjust them and bring them into my save. And looking at the goalkeeper first of all, I had a super keeper or a ball playing goalkeeper in this sense. What would normally be the super keeper? You can see that he's on defend duty, asking as, or what I would call defend duty. The out of possession role is the super keeper because he's going to be the one that's going to get ahead and try to stop counter attacks. But in possession, he's going to be a ball playing goalkeeper because I want him to start playing the ball, not just hoofing it long and trying to hope that somebody's going to win it in the air. But for the goalkeeper being a ball playing goalkeeper, he's taking more risk. That is one instruction that is locked in for him. Out of possession, on the other hand, he's going to tackle harder. I notice it kind of helps just have most of the players have the tackle harder instruction. So out of possession, that is the only other instruction that I gave him as a super keeper. Now I've not yet updated my game to the very latest version of FM26, so some of the player roles are going to appear awkward, and very good example here is the fullback role. I'm using a generic fullback in this sense, but for him he's going to stay wider, but when he's dribbling he's going to try to cut inside with the ball. The cut inside is supposed to be showing on this other left hand side, but this FM26 for some reason is going outside. I don't know why that is. And the other instruction you're going to also is you're also going to encourage him to make forward runs. In case you don't know how to do that, you can actually go ahead and click the selection here. It's going to bring up the options. Either you wanted to make fewer runs, but in this case I changed it from standard to making more runs, and then go ahead and click the X button to go back. And in case you don't want to click this selection, you can obviously click the small arrow dial in here to, like for this passing rate for example, I want the fullback to take more risk. You can dial it back like this and say, okay, on this other side, you say take fewer risk or maybe take normal risk. But in this sense, you want the fullback to take a bit more risk. So you just go ahead and click take more risk. That is going to be another instruction for the fullback. You also want him to cross to the byline. You can go ahead and add that instruction in here. And for the passing strategy, you don't really want to alter whether you want it to pass it short or direct. I just noticed that leaving it on normal is good. If you have a very good passer of the ball, you can add more direct passing in there for him. Now both fullbacks have the same instruction, so you can just go ahead and replicate the instruction for the other fullback. That was Livramento playing on the right hand side. Sometimes it's Trippier, but for the left hand side, I've used Livramento in this role as well, but I also used Lewis Hall to also play this side, and you can see that he's also going to cut inside and also stay wider. He's also going to cross on the byline and take a bit more risk. And of course, the important instruction to make him a bit more aggressive is to ask him to tackle harder. Now one key instruction that you could go ahead and add, but I didn't really see the need to do this, is go ahead and ask him to mark specific position. Currently set the standard, but in case you want to do that, you can go ahead and ask him to mark a specific position. Now Lewis Hall is the left back, so he's going to need to mark the opposition's right midfielder, so that's going to be the AMR or the MR. So I'm just going to leave it as normal standard for now because that has been working quite well. I don't want to get him dragged out of position because he's a defender. So that is it for the fullbacks. They have very similar instructions, and the ball playing defender is a ball playing centre back. Now you notice that the ball playing centre back has fewer runs selected for him. You can actually ask him to make, or it's a locked instruction that he doesn't get into the box very often, but you need him to actually carry the ball into midfield, making it difficult for the opposition to actually stop your progression of the field. So you can ask him to dribble more, and you can use the dial or any other option like that. Either you click it or you use the dial to switch here, but I think dribble more is the best option. So that's actually been helping us a lot. Passing risk is already a locked instruction for him that is going to be a bit more risky with his passing, but that is the only other instruction. I think out of possession, again, tackle harder is the one key instruction that I suggest that you add to most of your players to make them a bit more aggressive. Ball playing defenders or ball playing centre backs are very similar on both sides. So you do that for the two ball playing defenders or ball playing centre backs. Remember to ask them to tackle harder. Now in defensive midfield, you have a normal defensive midfielder on defend duty. Now for the defensive midfield, you have a normal defensive midfielder here, and he's only going to, like, one thing I would love to ask him to do is to be a bit more aggressive and get into the box, run forward a lot. But I notice that doesn't help us out defensively. So no instructions for him when it comes to in possession instruction, but when he's out of possession, he's going to tackle harder. You don't really want him to mark too tight because that may drag him out of position. So you're just going to tackle harder and be in his position, hold his role. And then when he's here, you can also ask him to take, if he's a very good player like Sandro Tonali, you can ask him to take a bit more risk. So, but for now, I think I just rely on Tonali to do his job and just left it on standard. His passing range has been good, so that's very good for us. Now the player that's going to be required to take a bit more risk is the deep line playmaker here, Bruno Guimaraes. So he is going to be the one to, as you can see here, take a bit more risk. That is the only other instruction for him. And then of course out of possession, you want him to, like I mentioned, tackle harder. Now I'm using the combined screen to try and talk about both the in possession and out of possession, but I'm going to show you how the shapes differ in both in and out of possession. Now looking at Jacob Murphy, he's going to play as an inside forward. Now he has a lot of instructions because I noticed not giving them instructions make your players as passive as possible. They don't really do anything. They don't know what to do with the ball. So I just noticed throwing them in, like asking them to stay a bit wider and also cut inside. Being an inside forward is going to drift inside anyway. So there was no need to really force that instruction, but you can ask them to make forward attacking runs because sometimes the players don't even help out. So I noticed that it's actually a locked instruction for the inside forward to make those forward runs and also take a bit more risk with his passing. Holding up the ball for the fullback to actually get ahead is also very helpful in this sense, but those are the only instructions that you have to do. Every other thing is just left by default for the player in that role. Out of possession, you can guess it, tackle harder, but in this case, since he's an attacker, you want him to follow the fullback that is going to be attacking, so you want him to mark tighter, and of course you can see the mark target in there, mark specific position that says the opposition's left back. That is because Jacob Murphy is the right winger, so he's going to be marking the left back of the opposition. And for the right hand side, Anthony Gordon and Joe Linton, surprisingly, has been playing quite well here for me. So Anthony Gordon is going to be the one here taking more risk, and of course no forced dribbling because he's already playing on the wings, and as an individual player he's going to be dribbling a lot. So taking more risk and making forward runs, that was enough for me. Out of possession, he's going to be marking tighter and of course tackling harder, and like I mentioned, marking the right back of the opposition because he is playing on the left wing. Now the important role here is the Jacob Ramsey role. Now I like Jacob Ramsey as a number 10 because he has a lot of freedom of movement. I could have used him on the free role. I think it's quite good, and I've also heard that Nick Voltemada playing as a free role is also quite good in this game. But I've had Jacob Ramsey in here playing on the attacking midfielder as with a lot of freedom of movement and also forward runs to help out the striker, because in this game the striker can get isolated very easily. So that's something that we needed to deal with, and having that forward runs up there was quite good. And of course, no need to force any crossing or any passing risk. So, but out of possession, there was no need to also include the tackling harder because I kind of want him to be everywhere and anywhere. So there's no need to actually drag him to be so defensive like that. So there was no need for any out of possession instructions. Now for the center forward, which is the Nick Voltemada role, and sometimes Johan Wissa, no instructions for this player. You can actually choose forward runs, but I didn't see it necessary. He's already in attack and he doesn't really drop too far deep. So there was no need to add any other instruction there except the out of possession tackle harder instruction. So that is all the player roles, and you can see the second player role here is center forward, so not an outlet. I actually did not use any outlets in this tactic, but in the other variant of the tactic, I went on to go and add more rules. We'll probably look at that when we look at the team instructions. So let's just look at the team instructions first. What I did here, or what I like to do in this sense, is not even to start here, is to go over to all instructions first of all. Once you have all your instructions labeled out, we'll start from passing directness, make it short, and your passing tempo should be a lot quicker because you don't want your team to be too passive. You want them to be as aggressive as possible. So time wasting, you may not notice this, but by default, it is set to standard. I didn't know why this is actually a default instruction, to be honest. So I had to actually turn this back to less often so the team can start to move the ball forward a bit quickly and be more aggressive. Attacking transition is counter-attacking. So once we win the ball from the opposition, we start a counter-attack almost immediately. That also encourages my team to be a bit more aggressive and not just too passive and not do anything with the ball. Attacking width is fairly narrow. That's because I wanted the front three or the front four to be closer to the center of the box, while the fullbacks, if you go like this, let's just put it like this. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Thank you, Football Manager Visualizer. So you have the inside forwards narrow in here, and then the fullbacks are going to have a lot of space to get ahead and attack these spaces here. So that is why we have it on very narrow. They're also playing for set pieces because I have Nick Voltemada, Dan Burn. I also have Botman, most of the tallest players of the game, even Joe Linton as well. So playing for set pieces sort of helped us. And build-up strategy, we want to play out of defense. That is why we have a ball-playing goalkeeper. So he's going to play out of defense. Oops, I love that. So, back to in possession. Like I mentioned, play out of defense. Goalkeeper is going to pass his shot to the centre-backs. And supporting runs is something that I noticed helped the team to be a bit more aggressive this year. If you have your supporting runs, you want them to maybe underlapping on the both flanks. It sort of helped out asking the defensive midfielder or even the DLP to try and they kind of support the attack in a way. Now back to in possession instructions. Dribbling, you want your team to dribble a bit more, encourage them to run at the opposition's defense. You also want to play through both flanks. You can click this option here and just push it all the way to both flanks. Try to expand the pitch. Now this is helpful for the fullback because you notice that the inside forwards are all the way inside the box. So the fullbacks are going to be getting out wide. Playing down both flanks is going to encourage your fullbacks to get into those spaces. Now we're almost done with all the other instructions, just a few more. You're going to ask the team to pass into space. Now another key instruction here that helps is to discourage shooting from distance. Now sometimes I turn this back on because I noticed that Bruno Guimaraes and Jacob Murphy, some of these players tend to score some very important goals for us from outside the box. So once in a while, I normally leave it on balance, but when it's getting too much during the match, I just discourage it. Now, patience, we're not going to be walking the ball into the box. There's no need for that. And when we're crossing style, when we have Wissa on the pitch, we play low crosses. When Voltemada is on the pitch, I tend to leave it on mixed crosses or float crosses. So that really depends on the player that is playing the role. But for now, since Voltemada is injured, we have Wissa in there, so he's playing low crosses. That is it for the in possession instructions. Let's look at out of possession instructions. Thankfully, they're not a lot. You want to ask your team to play with a high press. You can click it here and select the high press option. And for the, oops, that happened again. Let's go over to all instructions, out of possession. Oh, it's still all over the place. This is really, really weird. Hold on, give me a second. Let me just go back to all instructions. And of course, it's now combining both instructions. Okay. Out of possession, all instructions. Okay, this is another bug. I need to update my game as soon as possible. So I noticed that the in possession instructions are bleeding into the out of possession instructions. That's not supposed to happen. It's a bug in the game. But up here are the out of possession instructions. Next is defensive line. You can push that to higher defensive line. The trigger press is much more often trigger press because if you're using more often and your team is just playing on a high press, they still don't really engage your position. For some reason, I don't know why. And then counter press, you want to have your counter press turned on so when you lose possession of the ball, you can force a press and try to win it back as soon as possible. But if you notice that you're not winning the ball, you can always turn it off. I have it turned on. Get stuck in as well. And also, this invite crosses is not really necessary. The reason why I have it on is because I have tall defenders and they can go ahead and win the header. So if you have short defenders, do not turn on invite crosses. It's not going to work. That is just a situational one. Pressing trap, there's no need to force this either outside or inside. But the goalkeeper's distribution is, we're trying to disrupt that goalkeeper distribution. We have 4 players in there. So I'm going to try to prevent the short goalkeeper distribution. So that is it for the system that actually helped us become a bit more aggressive in Football Manager. And it took us all the way from 17th place all the way up to like 5th or 6th. So I'm trying to push for Europe now, which is quite good because I was struggling at first. And you can see the other Magpie system that I went on to tweak from this one. It's very similar, but it has a lot more nuanced roles. I have pressing, a pressing defensive midfielder and a screening defensive midfielder. And of course the AM is still there. But for the wingers, I have an inside winger and a winger or a wide forward and tracking winger. So very similar roles. I'm also playing with the playmaker wing back sort of. But the core idea of the system is the same. I just tweak the roles. That's why I have it as a second, kind of like second variant. But this is the main system that I went on to show you in the tactic. So let me know how it works out for you. Let me know if some of these principles that I went on to share, they might be quite familiar with you to you already, but let me know if they work out for you in the game. Try to ask your team to be more aggressive, get stuck in, tackle the opposition, and don't worry about your pressing intensity. If you have your pressing intensity very low, your team is not going to do much to try and win the ball. I don't know why. So having game breaking like this, serious warning at the top, kind of helps your team fight back a bit. So, but try to remember to watch the games when you get towards the latter stage of the game. You can start to tone it down a bit with waste time. That is a team instruction, so that I normally do this during the matches. You see the time wasting, just go ahead and turn it on to standard and then reduce the tempo a little bit to maybe lower tempo or standard tempo. You should be able to see out the game, should be able to frustrate the opposition and just keep the ball. So that is how I've been going about doing it. That's how I got my team to be a bit more aggressive on Football Manager. For more videos like this, remember to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.